Captain Ibrahim Traoré emerged as a defining figure in Burkina Faso's turbulent political landscape in 2022. At the age of 34, he became the world's youngest head of state after leading a coup d'état that deposed interim President Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba. His rise to power is emblematic of the complex interplay between military intervention, political instability, and popular dissatisfaction in the Sahel region, a zone grappling with jihadist insurgency and fragile governance. Ibrahim Traoré was born in 1988 in Bondakai, a small town in the Boucle du Maoun region of western Burkina Faso. Not much is publicly known about his family background. But like many in the region, he grew up amid economic hardship and limited state infrastructure. However, Traoré distinguished himself academically and gained admission to the University of Ouagadougou, where he studied geology. He reportedly was an intelligent and disciplined student interested not only in science, but also in national issues, particularly the history of Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader, Thomas Sankara. While at university, Traoré became involved in student activism, participating in protests related to educational reform and social justice. His student activism would later mirror his political ideals: anti-corruption, national sovereignty, and Pan-Africanism. He was known among peers for his reserved demeanor, strategic thinking, and sharp intellect. Following his studies, Traoré joined the army in 2010. He completed military training and quickly rose through the ranks due to his discipline, leadership, and operational effectiveness. He specialized in artillery and was deployed in various regions of Burkina Faso, particularly in the north, where the military was engaged in intense counterterrorism operations against jihadist groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS. The security situation in Burkina Faso had been deteriorating since 2015, with militant groups exploiting the region's porous borders, state fragility, and local grievances. As a field officer, Traoré gained first-hand experience of the operational failures, poor equipment, and weak coordination plaguing the Burkina army. These experiences deepened his frustration with the country's leadership and inspired a more radical vision for national defense and reform. On January 24, 2022, Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba seized power from President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore, promising to restore security and reform governance. However, under Damiba, attacks from jihadist groups continued unabated. Discontent grew within both the military and the civilian population. Ibrahim Traoré, then a captain in the Cobra Special Forces unit, led a faction of young officers dissatisfied with Damiba's leadership. On September 30, 2022, Traoré and his allies launched a successful coup, citing Damiba's failure to secure the nation. Traoré declared himself head of state and dissolved the transitional government. Unlike the previous coups, Traoré's takeover was met with surprising popular support, especially among youth groups and Pan-African activists. In public statements and appearances, he invoked the legacy of Thomas Sankara and called for a sovereign, self-reliant Burkina Faso. His rhetoric emphasized national dignity, a people-centric government, and liberation from neo-colonial influences, particularly France. Since assuming power, Traoré has governed as the transitional president under the banner of restoring security and national sovereignty. He has pledged not to remain in office after the transition period, though timelines for democratic elections remain uncertain. One of his key policies has been to recalibrate Burkina Faso's foreign alliances. Traoré has reduced French military presence in the country, leading to the withdrawal of French troops in early 2023. Instead, he has sought closer cooperation with Russia, Mali, and Niger, countries also governed by military juntas and critical of Western influence. Economically, Traoré has promoted policies focused on self-sufficiency. He has voiced strong support for agricultural revival, local industry, and fighting corruption. His government has called for the nationalization of certain resources and a more equitable distribution of wealth, again echoing Sankara's socialist ideals. Traoré enjoys significant grassroots support, especially from youth movements and nationalist groups. In the capital Ouagadougou and other urban centers, he is seen as a symbol of hope and resistance against a failed political elite and foreign meddling. However, he faces considerable challenges. The security situation remains dire, with hundreds of civilians and soldiers killed in ongoing attacks. The humanitarian crisis is escalating, with more than 2 million people displaced internally. Infrastructure, education, and healthcare systems are under severe strain. Internationally, his regime has drawn criticism from Western countries and human rights organizations, particularly over press freedom, political repression, and reports of extrajudicial actions by security forces. Despite this, Traoré remains defiant, framing such criticism as part of a broader neo-colonial agenda. Captain Traoré presents himself as humble, disciplined, and ideologically driven. In public speeches, he often wears military fatigues and avoids excessive ceremony. His communication style is direct, and he has made efforts to appear accessible to ordinary citizens. Symbolically, he embodies the fusion of youth, military competence, and revolutionary zeal. He frequently references the ideals of Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's former president who was assassinated in 1987. Traoré admires Sankara's emphasis on self-reliance, anti-corruption, and Pan-African unity. This ideological continuity resonates with many Burkina citizens who feel disillusioned by decades of ineffective governance. As of 2025, Ibrahim Traoré's legacy is still unfolding. His rise reflects the frustration of a generation fed up with insecurity, underdevelopment, and foreign dependency. His leadership marks a significant shift in Burkina Faso's political trajectory, one that aligns more with anti-imperialist and militarist nationalism than with liberal democratic governance. Whether Traoré can deliver on his promises remains to be seen. The balance between authoritarian control and revolutionary reform is delicate. If he manages to stabilize the country, empower local communities, and reduce corruption, he may be remembered as a transformative leader. But if insecurity worsens or the transition stalls, his regime could become yet another chapter in Burkina Faso's cycle of coups and unrest. What is clear is that Ibrahim Traoré has already altered the political discourse in Burkina Faso and beyond. His youth, boldness, and ideological clarity set him apart in a region marked by aging elites and international dependency. For better or worse, he represents a new era of African leadership, one born from crisis, defined by defiance, and striving for a sovereign future.